So when the San Francisco Giants don't make the playoffs this year, is that going to be a choke?
Well, it depends which player.
I just said the team.
Yeah, see, I told you I don't think teams can choke. I think teams can feel it. Like in a basketball game, 10-point lead gets to 7. I think you get tight. There's too many people on a team for a whole team for me to choke.
Well, so the San Francisco Giants right now are coming off
talk about them.
2 losses over the weekend to the Oakland Athletics. You hate to see it, right? They go to the Coliseum, a team that's won 30 games, and they drop both of them. Mm-hmm. Now, they did win 2 games over here, so they technically split the season series. But the Giants right now are sitting 10 games above 500. They are tied for the top spot in the wild card spot with the Philadelphia Phillies. And they're looking at a gauntlet of a schedule that right now involves 9 consecutive series against teams that are postseason bound outside of the Angels. So I would say after Los Angeles, they got the Rangers.
Yep.
Then you're looking at the Braves. Well, I should say the Braves are in there. The Cincinnati Reds are in there. The Chicago Cubs are in there. The San Diego Padres are in there. The San Francisco Giants needed those games this weekend. That, as much as I like to say that, one game matters, any team can be beat, this, that, and the other. Yes, all that's true. But when you stare at the fact that the Giants are probably going to play teams above the record of 500 outside of the Angels from now until September 5th, those games were important. And they lost both of them. And they didn't look good, especially in the one yesterday. So are you worried about the San Francisco Giants, Steiny, and their chances to make the postseason?
I don't look at it as though... How did you phrase it about, those were important games?
Yes.
Yeah, I think baseball, you can say games are all important or not, none of them are important or in the middle of them. Today's game against the Angels is more important than yesterday. You know what I mean? I really don't... those games were important, but there's 40 more games now that are more important than that game yesterday. It's kind of the way I look at it.
But they're important from also the standpoint of you look at the season. The San Francisco Giants are 34-27 against teams above 500.
Okay.
Right? They've played up to the level of competition. They are 27-24 against teams below 500.
Okay.
So they have also played down to competition.
Right.
That does give me concern. Combined with the fact that you didn't bring in anything at the trade deadline, so this is your team. Well, then I can look at the totality of your season and say that there are some underlying factors that I believe are going to prohibit the Giants from being in the postseason. Now, 3 teams got to jump them right now out of the 6 that are in contention for the wild card. But as of right now, they're 4 games back of the division. They ain't winning it because the Dodgers are catching a heater. And now you got to fight for the wild card with 5 other teams. Admittedly, some of them are not playing very well. Diamondbacks got swept this weekend. The Reds also got swept. But the Giants have the 4th toughest schedule the rest of the way. And if that's the team that's playing, I don't really know what I'm going to get. I don't know if they're going to continue to play up, if they're going to start to falter. I don't have as much confidence in the Giants right now, and it's not just because they got swept by the A's over the weekend.
It's interesting the way you talk about all these things, because so they're 34-27 against above 500.
Yes.
And 27-24 below 500.
Yes.
Just believe me, it's not that I'm, but that to me is an, okay. That's a nothing stat in a way. To me, it's it's who they are. They're good enough to beat some good teams. To me, there's not an anomaly there in terms of that stat.
But there's a lot of teams that do that.
To do what?
That are just okay against bad competition. Most of those teams ain't making the postseason.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. There are some breadcrumbs that I'm following that if the Giants do not make the postseason...
All right. Do you mind if I ask you what the Phillies' record is against those teams and everybody that the Giants are competing with?
So the Philadelphia Phillies, who are now tied, right?
Okay.
If you want to vamp for a minute here.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, let's say the Phillies are 30-20 against good teams and 20-23 against bad teams. Is that necessarily a bad thing? Because if they make the playoffs, they're just going to be playing good. You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily, I don't know what to draw from that, is what I'm saying.
No, fair. So the Philadelphia Phillies are 36-25 against teams above 500. That generally means that I have some faith in them. The Miami Marlins, for example, who are also one of the teams that are within a 3.5 games of the Giants right now for the top wildcard spot. They are 26-35 against teams above 500. It's
Florida. Or Miami.
Yeah, Miami. It's one of the reasons that I don't have a lot of faith in Miami to be there come October, because they don't beat teams better than them. But what they do, which is why they're still in contention for the playoffs, is they take care of business against the bottom feeders. And so the Giants, yes, they took, 3 or 4 from Arizona.
Right.
They have beaten good teams. But also in the recent, 3 weeks, they got series losses to the Tigers. I guess they lost one game to the Tigers, so that's fine.
The A's.
And the Washington Nationals.
Nationals?
Yeah, again, I hear what you're saying about, it's just baseball, and I can kind of pick and choose whatever I want. But if I'm looking for reasons to feel confident that the Giants are, during a ridiculously difficult month of August based on their schedule, going to be okay at the end, I'm not feeling great about it. I'm more pessimistic than optimistic.
But they're playing good teams now, right? And they have a better record against good teams than mediocre to bad teams.
And I guess it just depends on which side of that stat that I gave you believe the Giants are. Are they the team that is going to have no problem maintaining a winning record against teams above 500? Or are they going to revert to the team that seems to have trouble with those that have zero aspirations and, in fact, appear to be trying to lose?
Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying is I don't feel like the Giants have trouble with bad teams. I feel like they're 27-24 against sub 500 teams. That sounds about right, because to me they're not what are the Braves? Well, I'm using the Braves because I know their record's good, but I don't. Yeah, you'd like to be 30-20, I guess. I guess what I'm saying is, I look at baseball as these numbers tell you who you are, not. They tell you who you are, but they're not necessarily the reason you are who you are, if you know what I mean. So the San Francisco, to me, I think the Giants came into the season without a lot of expectations. Mm-hmm. They're 27-24 against 500 or worse. They're 34-27 against 500 or better. We're having a nice. I'd say we're having a nice year. We're having a nice year. And I don't look at any of those stats as a red. I don't I guess what I'm saying is they're not a red flag. Those stats aren't a red flag for me.
Sure, and that's fine. But again, when you also couple it with the anemic offense that we've seen since the All-Star break,
6 runs on the phone yesterday.
Yeah, when was the last time they scored 6
runs? 7
runs?
walks too.
Yeah, they won that game, right?
What's that?
I said they won that game.
Small sample size. I'm just saying. I think the Giants' bats are coming alive.
You want to know how many times the Giants have scored 7 runs in a game?
I would say 7. No, 17.
I'm just saying a recent memory. They scored 8 runs against the A's over here in San Francisco.
Yeah, they were tattooing the ball.
Yeah, they're really taking a Hogan Harris to task. After that, you got to go all the way back to July 18th. They scored 11 runs to win in Cincinnati.
I mean, okay.
Scored 8 runs in Pittsburgh.
Here's what I mean. And so they were 12-13 in July.
Their offense stinks.
Right.
Is the point.
Okay. But
that's a problem.
Right, but I'll tell you, but this is what I mean about sports and sports arguing and debating.
Yeah.
You could absolutely look at the 12-13 and say that was a great month considering they didn't score any runs. Some other team would have been 7-23 or 7-20.
I mean, yes, so they did. But if they scored 28 runs, or however many runs they scored in July,
yeah,
was 28 or 30?
Not a lot.
Okay.
Whatever.
If they score 35 runs in the month of August with the teams that they're playing, I believe they're going to be pummeled.
You might be right.
That's the problem.
You might be right on that.
Like, that's the issue that I'm looking at. It's not that I don't think that they're in a fine place. You know, they're 10 games above 500. They're 3 games up on the next man for the wild card. Like, they're in a good spot. I'm worried that that's not going to be where they are at the end of August because the Rangers are coming to town. The Rays are coming to town. You go to Atlanta. You go to Philly. You come home for Atlanta and Cincinnati, and then you go on the road for San Diego and Chicago. All of those are going to be tough games, and if you're scoring 3.5 runs a game, in all likelihood, you're going to lose 2 out of 3.
Probably.
And then you're not going to be in the postseason.
Right. Yeah. I'm not arguing with any of that. But I'm also, like, baseball to me is such a long season. Like, if you could crunch numbers, and I'll bet you would say, you could find out, well, if this team scored as many runs in July as the Giants, they would have gone 15-10. Let's say a team with better pitching.
Okay.
But another team might have gone 10-20. Or
yeah, I mean, well, no.
Or 10-15.
I hear what you're saying, but the reason the Giants did win those games is because of situational hitting and their pitching, specifically their bullpen, which has been really, really good. But, of course, you tax your bullpen over the course of a season when you have to use it that much. And I believe they've used their bullpen, if not the most, then like the second most in baseball. And teams that generally use their bullpen a lot do not perform well. And maybe they're an outlier. Maybe this is a statistical exception. But to me, the San Francisco Giants appear to be okay not making the playoffs. And I just wonder if people are.